Hi, hi everybody. My name is Fundisiwe. Thank you very much, Brother Obehi, for inviting me on your podcast today. It is with my humble privilege for being here and share my thoughts and share my book with you, and obviously touching base of who I am, what I do, and why I am here today.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode. That's interesting. Now let's get it started. So you were born in the UK, or did you move to the UK? You were already adult. Let's get this connection started.
My childhood in South Africa, I was obviously being in the township and knowing very well that probably Soweto was for underprivileged society. But I can say that I am proud to be coming from there. And yes, we did have sweet and sour stories to tell, but I am here today because I was made by that place, and I do not regret coming from that country. At the moment, obviously, I'm here in the UK, and but today I will be talking more about my book, which is Plagiarism from God. I'm the first time author, and very interesting book to talk about because it's a book of quotations. So we will be sharing those thoughts with Brother Obehi today, and I'm so privileged and humbled to be invited to this podcast today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, sister. I love the fact that you have written this book, and we have a lot to talk about. It is important. The fact I usually encourage people to write. It is very, very good that we do that. By the way, let's talk a bit about where you're coming from, Soweto. I remember when I was in school, I read a book, I read a poem that was titled Nightfall in Soweto. That was a very important poem. I really enjoyed it a lot. Okay, it was talking about a difficult time. And of course, as Africans, we need to understand what is going on in our continent, the apartheid regime, and the horror that the horrific implication that they have on the people. And so, yeah, if your eyes is having pain, having injury, the mouth feels the pain because it's part of the body. So, as African, if there is a problem in Ghana, it affects us in Nigeria, whether we like it or not. So, as the South African people were suffering from the apartheid regime, we in Nigeria we were feeling the pain. I remember that was a musician from my place. His name is Sonny Okosu. He sang a song about the South African situation. Not only him, a lot of people, of course, even from the political front, there was a lot of collaboration going on to sort of make sure the people are free at the end of the day. So I'm sort of saying that because you made mention of Soweto, and because they have an important role to play in the political scene of South African situation, that is why I just made mention of that. So what do you remember of Soweto or the time of apartheid regime, for example, of the apartheid regime during your, I don't know, how old were you then?
Look, what was happening in South Africa, obviously, we will have to move on from that. And this is what I want to put out there, that we should look forward, and we should look on how are we gonna better ourselves, and how we're gonna heal from what happened and the turmoils that happened in that country. By that time, I would say I was not born because I was born in 1983. So probably some of the things that I've never witnessed. But I remember when I started school, and obviously I was in township school, in Tlabangani Primary School. And I would remember those times during June 16, which it's a remembrance of Youth Day in South Africa. I will remember those times when all of a sudden we'll be going to school, and all of a sudden you will be seeing those hippos outside the school, and the teachers will be saying we should go back to our homes, and you will be running for your life because by that time it was when the youth as well will be having a march and stuff on the street and demonstrating, protest and everything. And you, as young as 6-year-old, running back home, for not to be a victim of whatever that was, the tumult that was going on the street. And that has vividly stayed with me, and it does come time and again that, actually we have experienced, even though we haven't experienced the deeper end of what was happening in that country and in that space in Soweto, but we are the generation that came from there. We are the generation that felt the effects of what was happening, because we lost families, we lost relatives, we lost neighbors. You will know there's such an uncle from somewhere, and you will hear that he passed away because of this. Some of them are people that you haven't met, but because of you were hearing stories of what was happening. I would say we felt that, and it's always been there with us. But we are now trying to say, you know what, we are better people, and we can look beyond, and we can't be victim of what has happened. We need to grow from it, and we need to come out of it and see life in a future aspect, and grab opportunities to make us better and make the community that we're coming from better as Africans as well. So I would say, yeah, it does have effect, because it has touched the socio-economy of that community, and I was there in South Africa, actually in Soweto, in December, Christmas holidays. And to me, that's when you meet people, you see the poverty somewhere, somehow, you see the suffering, you see other people who have succeeded, and some people who have taken their life to a better positioning. And no matter what has happened, but you always say, this is where I come from, and I'm proud of those bravery people who were there, who were fighting and who were holding on to make South Africa better and to make South Africa for Black and white. It was it was those memories when you see people coming and celebrate you for the fact that you are no longer in a community, but you've got the, I would say probably the advantage of what the global or the world can bring to you. Even though we're not saying probably we're successful or we're rich, but it's just seeing the aspect of seeing other people that a Black child, it's possible, it's doable, you can do it, you can be able to come out of South Africa and be a better person and take all those opportunities that comes with the world. And that's one thing that I always say, that is just to look back to our community. And I was so proud to be there for those certain days, and it was so refreshing. It's not about the poverty, it's not about what people have or don't have. It was just about belonging to a community, belonging to people who appreciate you and people who embrace you and who are very proud of your achievements. And it just being there with everybody laughing. And that's one thing about South Africans. They laugh through the pain. They sing through the pain. They make jokes through the pain. So it's just those type of surroundings that you miss from time to time when you're not home, when you're far away from your family, from your people. So as much as we try to do as much as we could in UK as South African community, we have our gatherings, but it's not the same as when you go home and you help those people who are in need and they appreciate it, and you feel blessed, and you feel that you are doing something to change the aspect of the socio-economy of the country.
Thank you for that sharing. All right, you said we should move on, look for a way to better our life, and of course, by extension, also better the society where we live. I think that is very important. Now, but in that, moving forward, what would you say, or what would you give us as a kind of reflection in terms of what is going on to make life better in South Africa?
Right. I'll be specific from something that is practical. Obviously, we have to join hands and work together. Be one, be united as a community of South Africans, as Africans, as the continent, and around, obviously, globally. This is one of the things that has been, it's always been on the back of my head, that in order for us, what are the solutions for us to move forward, and what are the solutions we can come up on, since we are the generation that is coming up, and we're looking at leaders who are coming out from this generation. That's why I wrote the book, and the book was The Plagiarism from God. Obviously, I will also introduce it later on, a later stage, but it was trying to find the solutions of how do we rise from what we thought it was impossible, and achieve the standard where we could be proud of our economy, we could be proud of ourself, our politics, and our being as well. Because the book is more on taking back the Ubuntu, which is humanity. It speaks a lot about that. It speaks a lot about being you and who you are, and obviously with I would say the mandate that God has given you, and us as African, that we should practice Ubuntu, which I find it that it has the aspect of so many things under it that can better and we move forward. If we can have that within ourselves, and then we can be able, some other things will just attract through having that aspect of a certain person who's taking in charge his mandate of Ubuntu.
Now, how did you start to write? Let's move into your book a little. Let's first of all try to understand you get it into writing. Then, of course, we'll move into the book itself. So tell me, how did you start to write? What moved you into, or what do you like about writing?
I'll be honest with this. We used to have a youth club. I was very active. I was very active back in South Africa, and we used to have this youth club. It was the organization, actually. It was Kulisa organization. I'm sure probably now it's a bigger in South Africa. It was the non-government organization. So we used to facilitate different programs and different projects. And the project that I joined, it was the Making It Better, which was the youth group who were facilitating workshops in schools and facilitating counseling and doing programs such as My Path, facilitating workshops in prison for the juveniles and the minor offenders. We used to have programs such as restorative justice in prison, and it was part of how we can uplift the youth and how we can face the situation that we were faced with, which is more of probably I would say crime, and try to change the thinking of those youth and trying to find jobs for them and find something for them to do. So it was during that time when we were having, we call it creative writing workshops. And that's when I figure out that, you know what, I like writing. Actually, I love telling stories, but they're always on my mind. They're up there. And then I always try to find solutions when I come with ideas that, oh, okay, I look at something, even still now, I would look at something and I would wish to do the research on it. That, oh, okay, so how A and B, how can they connect? How we can get the resolution? How we can get the answers of this and that? So it was during that time when obviously we were on that space of trying to find things, trying to find yourself, that what is it that you like, what is through that creative writing that changed my life and that changed my mindset. And ever since, it has stayed with me that I love writing. But it didn't end there. Funny enough, I did library information studies in South Africa through UNISA. And first it was technical essay and then through UNISA. And it is now when I reach UK and writing this book, and it is when it revealed everything that actually I do like writing. Actually, I do like telling stories. I love the books. It can be just physically books, because when I'm thinking that out of everything, I decided to do library information studies, and people were like, what is it with you taking that qualification? But I just love cataloging. I just love books. I get fascinated in them. I just go on my own little world. I love escaping and zooming to my little world. And when I first started writing this book, it was during lockdown. So during lockdown, obviously, you know that we had to stay home. I think I stayed home for a year because obviously we were we with the lockdown, not everything functioning, and I was working in travel agency by then in financial bureau, and obviously we couldn't do anything. No flights were going out, so we were followed to stay home. We're getting paid, but we were staying at home. So by that time, that's when I got to take the chance of writing my book. And I remember, because most of the time I was meditating a lot. You know, when you are home not doing much, I was trying to be this good, you know, bringing this good, healthy ways of living, you know, meditating, exercise. So then that's when this book came about, and I was in deep thoughts on that how are we going to get out of this? Because I remember thinking that with this COVID, obviously most families has lost their loved ones, they lost their relatives, they lost their community members, you know, their colleagues and stuff. But what is it that can heal the world from this? And I remember looking outside, and the first thing that came was the sound of the birds outside, and looking at the trees that were green, and it was so peaceful. It was still, the whole world was stand still. And it was when you realize that there's nothing else that we could have done, but it's God. It's God through everything. You're looking at those birds happy, you know, singing outside. You wake up, there are no cars in the road, no flights, no pollution, no whatsoever. But the only thing that survived, that was not stand still by that time, it was nature. So you ask yourself that where does that nature came from? And the answer was like, it's still there. And this is why I started coming up with the title of the book, which was because it was when I realized that through everything, it is through him that we can make it. It is through him that we can make the world a better place. And that's what influenced as well my writing, and that has also made it possible for me to have these quotations. But the funny part was that because of, I think I was connecting so much with the nature, I was connecting so much with the universe, and I felt that the book was not even written by me. I felt that they were ideas that were just downloading to me, and I couldn't even explain it, but I would think about something and I would just write it down, just down. I remember when I first asked my teacher, Dr. Avid Brown, because I knew definitely that I wanted to take this and put it in black and white. I wanted to put it in a book. And I was trying to find the companies that I could do that with them, but I felt that probably because of the draw of the book, probably they might not understand. And I needed somebody who can put themselves in my shoes and who can be able to think the same. We have the same, we align with the same attitude towards the book, we align with the same understanding towards the book. And that's when I approached Dr. Ava Brown, who I knew her through my friend from South Africa, Zibile. She's also an author, and that's when I connected with Dr. Ava Brown. And the first thing when I was obviously putting in the nutshell of what I want, the spec of the book and the purpose of it. It was so amazing that she connected with the book, mainly because obviously being Black, being a woman, understanding how the Black woman function or suffered, or how they can be great, they can be we can get something positive from that, from the turmoils that we go through, the hardship. We've got to do things times two, more than any other race. We've got to push ourselves so hard to get things done. We've got to be the expert as well, and which I find it that it's getting better, but we still have to push ourselves, our race forward in order to be recognized. And that was it. And she understood the book, and she helped me a lot. I asked her one thing, that could you make sure that whatever that I've written, the transcript that I've given you, please do not change anything. Do not try to make maybe the vocabulary or anything, or grammar. Just put it the way as it is. And that was the part of having the authenticity book. And also, I didn't want to change anything because I knew that was not from me. So probably whatever that I was writing, it was sent to me. It was downloaded to me to write it the way it was. I was just a vessel. And it is when then the book was created, and it was published in December 2021, and it's on Amazon at the moment. And yeah, that's the story about how I got myself into writing. And here we are today. I'll be putting my book in the shelf, so that I wish one day I could have been a librarian and cataloging. So who knows, I'll be cataloging my book next time.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Of course, you're still young. You can still have a lot of dream ahead of you. Starting early is important. Which means after this one, you're going to write another one again because yeah.
Yeah, definitely, because that was just the book of quotations. So it was more on how a Black race can have a self-love, loving ourselves, and practice our one thing that is just amazing that we're given by God, which is Ubuntu, practice Ubuntu and have respect for each other, and how we can better our inner being, especially more spiritually. Because you're talking about religion, it's part of religious, is part of spirituality. So it was when that you look the broader aspect of it, of the book, that it's there just to remind Black people that you don't be victims, start getting up, start taking your power, start writing your own stories, because our stories are not being written by us. Some people will come and write our stories, but now it's time for us to raise ourselves and say, we are taking in charge of what we are witnessing as us, and we are there, we are here, and we are going to write our stories. So it was based on that, really.
All right, that's powerful. That's powerful. Really very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know where I want to go first is the title of the book.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Let's begin from there because we have a lot to talk about it. The
Right.
plagiarism from God.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So basically, obviously, as you know, plagiarism most of the time is used when you have copied or have, I would say, stole or stealing somebody's idea or stealing somebody else's work or copied it without putting a reference on them. So you're making their work your own. So that's my understanding of plagiarism, just to be in short. But then it is a very controversial title that I've chosen. And I would say plagiarism, the plagiarism of my book, came nowhere other than God. So I wouldn't say that somebody else can claim it and say it's his or hers. My reference is God. As you can see that it says plagiarism from God. So meaning the reference there, it's God. The reference there, it's there. So you've got the bibliography right there on the title. Whatever that I feel that I have written there, it's something that God wanted us to know. Let me just be clear. The book is not necessary for Black population. It's for everybody who can resonate with it when they read it. But for now, it was more on trying to be very focusing on this race, the race that in so many years they've been put down, in so many years that they lost their self-confidence as the race, and their self-esteem of following their culture, following their practice, following their spirituality, following their norms and things that the tradition, the things that they were born and they've seen it from their forefathers from generation to generation. And it's time for us to look back and take the good things that were there as African people, as Black people. It is when you realize that this race needs to gain the power back, and the power, it's nothing to do with being success, that you've got how many cars, you've got a beautiful big houses. Yes, those can be the part of success, but I always measure success with the power of your mind. Once we start um, using or taking back the power of our mind. And that's when we'll be channeling in successful things, materials that comes with it. But it's not necessarily about materials, it's just the power of mind, because you can be poor, but if you've got your mind, your consciousness, you've got peace. And people don't realize that peace is the most important part. It's the most important thing that you can ever get. It doesn't matter where you are. You can be living in under the bridge, but if you've got peace within yourself, you think better, you function better. You are able to look for the next the next thing that you can do to better yourself. But it's just that, and when you look at, I'm saying this because when you look at in our past, let's say probably our forefathers, how did they live in Africa? The way they live by then, they lived by then, you will be thinking that they were poor because they didn't have cars, they didn't have this material stuff, they didn't have big houses. But it was then when you realize with those resources that we've got today in this day and time, that those are the things that are giving us stress. Those are the things that depress us. Those are the things that sometimes you can have all these mansion houses, you can have all the money in the world, you can have all this world, but you're not happy. You are lonely. You are empty inside. And for me, the definition of being successful and have a wealth, it's through the mind, it's through peace, it's through happiness within, and it's through knowing who you are, where you come from, and where you're going.
All right. And that is another powerful part again, the mind. As someone was saying that the mind is a terrible thing to lose.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Because that is where the war actually is taking place. That is where we can map out our peace, our strategy, everything takes place in the mind.
Yes.
What you say outside is only a manifestation of it.
The manifestation of a mind, it's when you gain your consciousness. And obviously through that consciousness, it's when you see the right and the wrong perfectly. And I've got a quote that probably I can just check on my book.
Yeah, go ahead and do that.
Page 15. It's on page 15. And it says, the only gift to your child is to let them open mindset. Trust me, they will go far. So with that aspect, that's the best gift that you can give to your kids, to your children, the future generation as a whole, for them to open their mindset. Opening mindset doesn't necessarily mean that you can gullible everything that the world give to you, but it's about them knowing who they are, knowing where they stand, and knowing where they come from and where they are going. Because if you don't know where you come from, it's very difficult for you to know where you're going and why you're here, where you are. So it feels like you are just floating without you stemming yourself to the ground. So we're bringing back that gravity. We're bringing it back to our future generation through the books, through telling stories of where we've been before, and where our ancestors or our forefathers have been before, and what do we think that it will keep us going forward. So that's the gift that you can give to your child, to be proud of who they are, to be proud of their identity, how are they being identified. And yeah, I think that's that's how I manifest all those quotations. I manifest them and hoping that they will go from generation to generation, even if I'm not here, but they will stay with their future.
Now, I want you to speak a bit about the title again, because that title is really very interesting. Where to some person it might be provoking, but where I think we need to face it more.
Mhm.
Um, when in your explanation you said that plagiarism will, of course, mean somebody taking something that belongs to another person without the proper attribution, which is, of course, that is actually how it is defined. I want you to put it in context. What is being taken here and who is taking it? You know, if you were to go to a law court and you bring out evidence of what has happened, there is always the accused and the accuser. There is always the person who something is taken from, or somebody who is taking something. So I wanted to clarify that part for me.
Right. Just for starters, if you have to take me to court, you have to make sure that you bring God in that courtroom, because obviously he's the one who's going to be a victim. Nobody whatsoever, nobody else except him. So this is just between me and him or her, the way we call him. So it's between me and God. And what I was trying to say, these are the things that he wanted us to know, or she wanted us to know. And these are the things that, like I said, that I was just a vessel of downloading this information. And as you can see on my book, it's more of God was saying, you are also with it. You're also human. You are also brilliant, and that you also need to love yourself. And that's my message. We need to love ourselves so deep that we can be able to respect one another, to respect another person, to have empathy for another person, to have that ubuntu, that love for another person. And basically, he just reminded us the concept of ubuntu, the concept of humanity. And as much as it has spread, it says, once you understand that fundamental, then you understand me as God. You understand what kind of person you should be. You understand that you will be able to feel the confident to yourself, you will be able to channel yourself, and the manner that you'll be channeling yourself in the positive way, that now you know that, okay, I'm Fundi, I'm from South Africa, I'm a Zulu speaking person. What my forefathers used to do, and I'm taking it on board. I'm happy about it. I'm happy about my hair. I love my skin. I love who I am. I love my language. I'm unique, and I'm not afraid to be Black. I'm not afraid to be an African. I'm not afraid to be a South African. I'm not afraid to be a Zulu person. And it's mainly about that it will be God who's going to be in that courtroom. And that's the evidence enough to say, it's not you, Obehi, it's not you, whoever, but it's through God. So you will have to bring God to that courtroom.
All right, that is important. Sorry, I'm just dragging you a little bit there, but I need a clarification. It is important for me because we can take the argument deeper than that. Because also, you did make mention of Africa, looking at African spirituality. And because when we talk about things like this, we do need to give some clarification so that people know where we stand. No? Perhaps you are using the Bible as interpretation, then you are using African as interpretation, using African spirituality. So that is why I think maybe those things might need to be clarified. Then we also talk about identity. You made mention of no, and you talk of also ancestors, talk of our forefather. So that is why I think maybe those clarifications, if they are made, it will be it become very important for us. Those are really very important that we know where we are coming from, because if we don't know where we are coming from, we don't know where we are going. But sometimes we also need to know how we get lost, because I believe that it is fair to say that in Africa that we have gotten lost. The concept of maybe be saved of the white Jesus, for example. I usually say that this only become necessary after we have got lost, because before we got lost, we didn't need to be saved. But if we need to be saved, meaning somebody have succeeded in getting us lost. So that is why all these contests are very important to explain and expatiate on them. You were talking of maybe be rich before and be poor. That most people in Africa at the time, of course, this is pre-encounter with the European mafias or state-run mafia who basically destroy Africa and turn Africa into what they wanted it to be. At that time, we really were free people in our free land, in our free places. We didn't really need anybody to come and be giving me a name. I already have a name. I know where I'm coming from. I know my ancestors. We know how to organize our life. But now it appears that we are just a race of children. We have never done anything good in our whole generation. But that again is part of, I think, what you are talking about, which is the history. Know your story. But if you know your story, you can understand that that doesn't really hold water. But if you do not know your story, if you do not know your history, then it becomes difficult to understand all that. And I believe all those are actually invoked into what you're talking about here, which is the identity, rediscovering who you are, because none of them is actually existing in isolation. They are all connected.
Definitely.
Yeah. So when you say education now or know your history, the point also become, from where are you know your history? From what point of view are you reading the history? Who is even writing the history that you are reading? And I think you also said something important just now when you were talking of God, that maybe he or her. But which is actually the way to describe God? And which God are we talking about here? Or are we just looking at a way of understanding God? Because at the end of the day, maybe, just maybe, the God that we are talking about, whether you are interpreting it from Islam, from Christianity, from African traditional religion, is actually one God. There is no two, only one. So Christianity is just a way of knowing God. Islam is another way of knowing God. African traditional system is another way of knowing God. So there are no different gods. That is one in a sense, no? So you see, it might appear to be self-explanatory. It is not self-explanatory. So that is why I'm going to hold you here to give me some explanation. So how do we bring African context into the entire conversation? Whatever you want to say there, it is important for me.
So the question is, who is God we're saving? The question is, how would we know our history? Let's start with the first point that you have raised there regarding the white Jesus concept. I know that probably you can see that there's a bit of revolution when it comes to that lately, about Africans or Black people who are coming out and expressing their views on why do we have to follow Jesus, because he's a white Jesus that we always fed. I've got I had a conversation actually with my white friend here, my English friend here in UK, and she couldn't see the point of why do African think that Jesus is not there for them. It was again the fact that we have to understand the frustration of our Black population, that the same Jesus Christ that died for us, after all the turmoils that they've been through with slavery, with apartheid, with poverty in Africa, it becomes like for them to share that where is that Jesus actually that died for our sins and died for us and obviously protecting us. So we find ourselves now that our Black population or our African people are becoming confused about serving God, about knowing Jesus Christ. And I explained to her that, you know what, as much as we know the religion, that obviously there was Jesus Christ who died for us, there is Jesus Christ who died for us for our sins. But you've got to understand that these are the same black people. When you wake up in the morning, you watch the movie or whatsoever that is portraying Jesus Christ, and you see the white image. And she couldn't understand. Then I said, you don't understand the psychological part of it. That when you see something, because the visuals are the very important thing, to be honest, because that's when you make a decision or your views from the image that you see without saying any words, without somebody saying anything. It's just the image. It's like when somebody robs you along the way, along the street at night. What do you recognize first? Do you recognize that, oh, that person was having this type of hair, was wearing this? So it's just the visual. We make a decision quickly with the visual rather than words. So I said that psychologically, it has shown, it has made Black people to ask themselves that is he for our team or for the other team? Because obviously you're looking at this white Jesus Christ who died for you, but at the very same time you're being slaved, or you go through apartheid, or you through the same image that you see as the person who they say is a savior. So I was trying to explain it to my English friend, and that's when she realized that, oh, actually I didn't see it that way. Then I said, yeah, can you imagine if you grew up, because most of our lives we grew up seeing those crucified Jesus Christ as a white image, and we have never seen somebody who's our color. And then we grew up knowing that we are, maybe that's what has also have an impact on losing our self-esteem, because we're thinking that, oh, okay, just because that's the image, that means those people were right to do what they did. So we justify what those slavery happened, those apartheid happens, or those poverty, people coming to take the treasures in Africa. And we're probably thinking that, oh, probably that's what Jesus Christ wants, because we're seeing Jesus Christ as that image. So it is another concept that we have to deal with, making people understand that it was psychologically damaging for generation to generation, for decades and decades of years. Coming to the point of God, we only have one God. And the reason for me to say he or she, it's because nobody can answer that question till now. From my side, I take God as the spiritual consciousness within ourselves. So I don't think that probably God will come as a he or she. That's just my opinion. And I know that probably there's different opinion regarding that. But what if probably we are waiting and looking for this Jesus Christ who's going to come in the shape of a human? Don't quote me on that, because yes, I don't know Bible very well. I can't quote everything in the Bible, even though I'm in Seventh Adventist. But then what if what we are waiting for is not actually what we are waiting for? What if probably when he said he's going to come back for the second time, What if probably is the consciousness in your mind, in your brain? And that's when I said it's important to protect your mind, because he might come as a consciousness and he might come to show you the things, the ways that you have to follow the path. And then here we are, we're waiting for this person who's going to come from the sky, and we'll see the trumpets calling and the horses and whatever that has been written on Revelation, but only to find out that when he said he's going to come as a thief, I will come back as a thief. And you are waiting for something that is going to be obvious, but only to find out probably he's coming in consciousness. So you need to be clear with your conscience, and you need to think straight. And probably that's when he will be talking to you. So, regarding the history, where we are, who we are, where we come from, and where we are heading. These are the reasons why we start writing books and start writing our findings. It doesn't matter whether it's gullible people don't agree with it, or I'm sorry to say this, but if it's rubbish that you're writing, but as long as you've written something, you've written your experiences, you've written things that probably in future might help with the solutions. They might be looking at this book now, but probably this book is not written for now. It's not written for our generation. It's written for the next generation, when everything has come down, and then they go back and say, oh, by the way, there was this concept, and they go back to the concept. And because by then it will be a different world with different things that will be happening probably, and different aspects. But the writing, it's something that you're leaving the evidence. We have seen the Egyptians too. They had writing. We have gained from it. The Bible actually came from those writings, some of it. And that's when you make sure that the history stays, the history continue, the history has been known, telling our stories and from where we're coming from, our ancestors. And fortunately, with our ancestors or our forefathers, our great-grandparents and so forth, they were very good in narrating orally. So the information was transferred from one generation to the next. I will make an example. I'm a Zulu speaking. I had a privilege of having my grandfather, having my mother, and who are putting those stories, the history from generation to generation. And it is when it's up to me that I'm passing this information to my kids as well, so that they can also do the same thing orally. But along the oral information, the oral communication or transferring information, there are a little bit of those things that we miss as well, because as you know, the chain of command, kind of the breakdown of communication, it doesn't get to the end as the same. So that's why we've got to start writing, so that we keep those intact from generation to generation. And that's how we know our history. And that's why I say I'm rich. I'm rich not because I'm rich through money or through wealthy. I'm rich through the information that was passed to me by my great grandfather, my mom, my dad, and towards to me. That made me rich, because I've got this knowledge. this knowledge, this information, that I can pride myself that I'm enough. I'm comfortable of who I am, no matter what. I can't be shaken or be taken easily because of not knowing my identity. So I'm happy with that.
Well, the question of spirituality. Anyway, we are talking about your book because the title of your book have plagiarism from God, because there is God in it. That is why we are looking at it also from that point of view. And of course, spirituality is something that we take very seriously here, because when we are talking about ourselves, finding ourselves back again in Africa or among Africans, because what is happening in Africa is also happening among Africans. And one thing I have discovered, talking to a lot of Africans in the diaspora, particularly those that might be in the Caribbean and in the West, is that they are suffering from the same thing that we are suffering from. And how this is happening is that we have our competitors who is standing between us doing the narration, which is the West, the European. They are the one that are writing African history for us. So they try to cancel everything that had been before their encounter with us, and they are making it sure that we look at reality from their lenses, so that they will sort of try to tell us that our history started from from colonialism, if we are in Africa. Then for the Africans in the diaspora, their history started from slavery. But this is so bad. This is, of course, this is what happens when a people have to look at reality through the lenses of another person, because the damage, you can't even calculate it, is so bad, because you basically are creating a frame of reference for people. It's obvious that your friend, the British, couldn't get it that after all what Jesus Christ have done for you, how come you cannot make him as a reference? But it is only when you look beyond the box, you look outside of the box, that you come to understand that it has been a cheating all along. It has been fake from the beginning. All right, I say fake because it's not even rational for somebody to come and save you. Why would he want to leave his own people and come and save you? Why? What is the purpose for it? Even if there were no evidence of European deceiving African people, killing people, raping, committing genocide for them to be able to take the resources in Africa, it still would not make any sense that a group of Europeans organize themselves to come and save African people. Why? And another question that we might need to ask there is, from whom are you saving African? What is
from who? Saving them from who?
What is the danger you are saving them from? You see, I think a good example now would be like what the United States is doing in Africa. The United States recently set up an African command, which of course I think they couldn't find a base in Africa because some African government didn't give them land. So they went and set it up in Germany. It's called African Command, U.S. African Command. It's a military setup that they created. And sometimes I think one journalist was asking, what are you doing this for? They said, well, they are going to protect the African people, something like that. But that is really difficult for me to understand. To organize that command, even though they are in Germany, is very costly. It requires a lot of billions of dollars. Why would the United States spend billions of dollars to save people that are not your citizens? To raise that money, the US citizens need to pay for it. Why would you do that? But it's only when we think outside the box that we realize that it is not true. They are there to protect their own interests. That is what the Europeans did too. That is what they did with religion. That is what they did with commerce. That is what they did with politics. Nobody is saving another person.
Right, yeah.
So it is important that some of these things we take time to explain them, to evaluate them, to reflect about them.
Yeah.
That our frame of reference need to reflect us.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at the mirror. The image that we see in the mirror must look like us, or there is something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why do I say that? If you go to any other place or among every other people,
Mm-hmm.
you will see that their frame of reference in terms of religion, in terms of the film that they watch, in terms of spirituality, is always a reflection of the mirror. Because the relationship between you and the mirror is that you look at it, but your image is projected back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the Chinese, the Buddha, look at the Arab, look at every other people, it is just the way it is.
Yeah.
Even among Africa, it was the way it is until we got this unholy romance with the European, where we now need to look at our reality through their lenses. That is why we change our names. That is why I am called Peter.
Mm-hmm.
I got Peter because I wanted to baptize into the Roman Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Because according to the explanation, I didn't say they forced me,
Mm-hmm.
but they forced me psychologically. They didn't force me physically.
Definitely.
There are different ways of doing things. In that the God I was going to serve couldn't understand my language, couldn't understand my name. My name is a very beautiful name, Obehi. That is what you are reading here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very beautiful name. But as beautiful as this name is, it cannot please God. So I need to take a name, a European name, which is Peter. I'm just using an example of me, but this is the way it is for many millions, billions of people, that we need to see reality from other people's point of view. So I think that it is important, like you say, that we need to reclaim ourselves, know our history, know where we are coming from, look back to where we are coming from, to our ancestors. How have they been living before now? What is their frame of reference? What do you want to tell me about spirituality in Zulu? Because you are speaking Zulu, right? Zulu language, correct?
Yes.
Tell me about spirituality from the point of view of Zulu people.
Oh, no. I'm proudly so to speak about it. Actually, that's what I enjoy more. Very proud to be Zulu, actually. The spirituality that I would say our tribe, because to be fair, that's what I can talk more on, because I can similarize with them. That's who I am. The spirituality of it, if I do historically, I know that God was worshipped. Actually, not worshipped as such, but he was recognized. The nature was recognized. So God was recognized more through nature. As you know, that Africa is the place where you get everything. You get agriculture, you get different weathers, you get different animals that you probably can't find in other continent. You get those treasures, those minerals. And those were the things that were good enough to show my people that God is there, God lives. And the same God that I'm talking about is the same God that everybody around the world recognize. It's not a different God, because God is just one person. It's just one consciousness. So with them, they used to worship Sabbath, so the sixth day, as you can also see in the Christianity Bible, that you honor the seventh day, sixth day. Yeah, so Saturday, it's where you call the Sabbath. Now it's called Sabbath actually with other religions, and they were very disciplined. And they were very focused, and they understood each other. They respected each other in a way that they will be able to understand and focus on what has to be done seasonally. I'll make an example of let me just based on agriculture. the fruits used to, which I think probably it might be the whole of Africa, if I'm not mistaken, that the fruits and vegetables, you will find them anywhere in Africa, and they had seasons. So let's say probably banana will come in that season, and watermelon will come in summer, and which now you find it's so different, because now you can find certain fruits all throughout the year, all throughout the seasons. And you ask yourself that, are we there yet? But there were reasons for those structures. There were reasons for the way they built, the architect, the archaeology that they were creating, the inventions that they were creating, the language, how you speak the language, and for example, to building a house, it was not on four-cornered. As you can see, most of the time when you go to KwaZulu Natal or KwaZulu, which is the kingdom of Zulu, there was a place where it was called KwaBulawayo. So if you check KwaBulawayo, it was like a crow, right? It was like a crow, and then you can see different housing, which we call amakuma, and those houses were just round. I'm coming with something on that. So they were not built in four-cornered shape. They were built in cycle-shaped. And this is when you start to do a research and you try to bring both Africanism and the scientific ways of what is similarities, what are the differences, and if there are differences, why there are differences. When there's similarities, why there's similarity. What was the purpose? Why those people, ancient people, thought of those architects? So with my findings, I find that, okay, now we've got these houses which were built like a cycle. And in everything that we see, it's spiral. So it's more like it's a revolution, 360 revolution. That's the measurement of the universe, of the earth, of the planet. The planet is round. The waves, when you see the waves go in a form of cycle. A child, an unborn child in the mother's womb, they sit there, or they remain in the womb on a different, on that shape, the cycle shape. The sun is round, the moon is round. Probably some scientific staff will come and disagree with that, but that's what we see with our naked eyes. That's what we see. I'm just talking about what I see. I'm not talking about me going beyond scientific ways. But then it is when now you connect, when I'm talking about the spirituality and when I'm talking about consciousness, it's not something which is voodoo or whatsoever, but we know that the spirit probably will be also rotating like in a cycle, like in a spiral. So for me, for my findings and my opinion, I think that the world, it's been measured in cycle, in spiral, for instance, our eyes. Look at our eyes. We've got two eyes, we've got two ears, we've got nose. When you look at your nose or our nose, yes, they might be different now because we do all this surgery and whatever. But they're round. There's two holes. Then the ears, there's two holes. The eyes, there's two holes. They're round. And it's very interesting to see these things, and you start picking that, most of the time nature is in spiral. What does that mean? And I know I can
No. It's very interesting what you say, though.
you know. Uh, so it's time for us to see those findings and try to connect the ancient times with now. And then coming back to about the house, the houses, how they were built. They were built in order for, apparently it was believed that the spirit, let's say, the spirit around the house will be able to rotate, like to fly freely in the house, because it's round. So that's how it moves. The wind moves in that spiral as well. So it was the concept of that. And you can even see the crow, like the kettles, they are corals, because the kettles with my culture, it's when they believe that that's where probably our ancestors normally do come. When you want to talk to them, you go to the crow. Our fathers, our grandfathers, they will go to the crow and connect with their ancestors through that. But then that's when it comes in as when you realize that, okay, the same crow that they're talking about, it's in a round shape. It's not in a four-corner shape. So there must be something going on there. There must be something that we have to investigate and understand why the older people used to do those things. Because it's not by coincidence that they do those things, but because we wait for scientific ways to start saying that, oh, by the way, these are the findings, this is what we established. And then it makes it easy, and it makes you feel comfortable by following that practice, because you're thinking that, oh, because it has been written in Dr. So-and-so book, then I will go with it. Coming to meditation, I know meditation also has some aspect where probably they're thinking it's a thinner line of good and evil. I always say it's up to your mind how you take things. It's up to you. It's your choice whether you go for evil or you go for good. You might be using some practice or maybe something concept that people will be like, oh, we're not going to go there because they are being told otherwise, or no, don't go there. But then you ask yourself that, okay, let me just try to the similarity between the two. When you meditate, you sit quietly, you talk through your mind, you manifest. And then when you pray, on the other hand, you're doing the same thing. It's the same practice, but the difference is who gives the information, if you know what I mean. When you pray, you do certain positioning, you take a positioning, you pray. Same as meditation, you do a certain positioning, you pray. You talk through, obviously, with your mind, consciousness. But don't you see the similarities in these things?
Yeah. You see, it usually call for reflection, no? Also because what you were saying just now, uh, it depends on what is our frame of reference, what is helping us to see what is around us. Everything really is around us. It's just that we are so blind not to see them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, a good example would be like the radio wave.
Yes.
You see, the wave, the information that you and I are communicating, there is no really line that is connecting you in UK and me in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
We are just speaking into the air.
Mm-hmm.
This air, and it is not only what I'm saying and what you are saying that is in the air. This air is full of a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
The only one we can see and hear just now are the one that we have the tool to be able to read.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that these are the only ones that are valuable. Now, let's go back in time. Say maybe, for example, like 200 years ago, or let's say 2,000 years ago, let me be abundant. At that time, these tools were not available. Say maybe at that time, people in South America and people in Africa, they were talking, they wanted to hear each other. They will not be able to hear each other. But it doesn't mean that that was not possible. It was already possible, just that we didn't have the way of manifesting it in reality.
Mm-hmm.
In the time to come, more technology will be invented, and we will be able to read more into what is even potentially possible, which means everything is there. But what is our frame of reference? What is helping us to see the yellow pink, the yellow that is right in front of you that you haven't yet noticed? What is helping you to see the sound that is echoing very close to your ear just now, but you haven't paid attention? Because until you pay attention, you think it is not there, but it is there.
Yes.
It has always been there.
Definitely.
You see, I think that is why it is also important that as Africans, we need to understand that our frame of reference should be the one that reflects us, because this is where we are going to be able to even question reality based on our sense of orientation. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say here. That you also said something important, that it is good that you write. It doesn't even matter whether your book is going to end up as in Oscar, it's going to be the bestseller. It's not. That is not even what is important. What is important is that you just communicate what you have there. That is all you have to do. Leave it there.
Yes.
Someday, some other person is going to read it. He's going to get the message. You see, when the Egyptians were painting on the wall, they didn't imagine us. They couldn't see us.
Yes.
But they know somehow that somebody is going to benefit from what they are doing. That is why they do those nice choreography of their imagination. Now, when we look at it, we can see how they were.
Yeah.
But what if they didn't do it? They will still be dead by now.
True.
You see, so it is good that we need to read. We need to develop our tools to be able to read reality according to our senses and sensibility. All right, so I don't want to prolong that.
A very, very good point that you have just raised, that we manifest. The question that probably has, it's very gambling with African people, is that how do you manifest? What is the important tool in your body that you manifest through? And this comes back again. It goes back again to the importance, the power of a mind, and how we have to protect that. So with our mind, obviously, that's where our thoughts go. And with the thought, it goes to our mouth. And then we say the word. We are creating. We are creating what needs to be manifested. But it comes straight from the thoughts. It comes straight from the mind. And that's why in my book, I say the mind is the power that nobody can even take away from you, but you can take your mind away from you. Saying that, it's because of, now we're talking about colonialism, slavery. And to be honest, Obehi, nobody was going to have powers to do that if you were confident about your mindset. And we know that these slaveries and colonization happened with the help of our own people as well. So these are the things that we've got to understand, that it's not for the fact that it's not because of the other race was clever, intelligent, or powerful than us. It's because we betrayed ourselves.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Anyway, I just want to quickly add something to that before you continue.
All right.
You see, you are speaking from the position of power. That is called power.
Yes.
In that you need to realize that you are a contributor to what brings you to your position you are today.
Yes. Yes.
Because if you do that, it means you can change it today if you want.
Yeah, true.
Another position, the opposite position, is to believe that somebody bring you to where you are today. And the consequence of that is that you are powerless. You cannot change it. Please go on.
Yes. Yeah, and so yeah, it totally. I agree with you. But wherever position that you're in, it's what you've manifested and what you've shapen your present position, and you can shapen your next positioning. But obviously, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can do that mainly by yourself. You do it through God as well, because obviously, who are you asking, and who are you manifesting? Who's manifesting these things that you're trying to manifest? Who's bringing them to you? So the mind, it's a very, very critical tool for everybody to think through and create through. You create with your thoughts, you create with your what you say with your mouth, what has been transferred from your thoughts. So that's why we've got to be very careful of the things that we think about and the things that we see and the things that we say, because that is just the powerful. That is why they would probably, I would say, this part, the head, it's the very, very, very important parts of your body, together with the heart, obviously. Not mainly of their function, of what they do in a biological aspect, but in a spiritual way, that's where everything starts, and that's where you create who you are and where you're going.
And we can also
My,
look at it
it,
as an antenna. If you have a radio, we need to look at the head also like an antenna. Because if you turn on the radio and the antenna is not working, you cannot get a signal. If you cannot get a signal, the radio is also absolutely useless.
definitely, and I think I've got that quote as well in my book regarding the hair being the communicator of the earth, the universe. And again, those are the practice that you come across with our ancient Africanism, and which, when you look at in the modern scientific ways, you can connect that. Well, actually, it did exist before. It's just that now it's existing in the form of modern. Um, I would say, our forefather used to go to a higher mountain when it rains or when there's thunder lightning. So it is when, because of we are the we've got electricity right within ourselves, electrons, and that's how human are. And by those thunders, it takes the energy back to your body. It recharges your body. So it's when you start seeing these things and you ask yourself that, that's very interesting. And we end up, some of the things we're scared of because we don't have the deeper knowledge, or we don't use our mind, our consciousness, to understand why were those concepts created. And yeah, it is evidence that even if you die, your body will decompose. You'll be left with bones, but your hair can live longer because they are the telepath.
What you say there also is very important, no? Because the hair, it look like plastic, no? You see, recently they discover one of the princess in one of the Egyptian princess, no? The hair was still fresh, even though the body has the fresh have all gone, but the hair was still there. But that is just the hair. What about the consciousness? Like I was saying before, what we need is the tools to be able to read. And now, in the time to come, we will develop more tools that will help us to read even more into the universal consciousness, which will help us to even know more than what we know today. Because we don't know enough. We barely are even scratching the surface. Many things are there that we do not yet know. See, that is why we really must put our presence in the universe in a way that other people can read them.
Yes.
If you write, you are registering your presence in the universe.
Oh,
If you do podcasts like this, you are putting it in the universe.
Mm.
If you do video, you are putting it in the universe. That is a universal collection of knowledge.
Wow.
It is one. So we cannot be lacking as Africans, try to contest what is reality, reevaluating it and say our own also. It cannot just be about complain.
Yep.
Let philosophize also.
Yes.
Of course, I'm saying also because I'm talking of the African after 500 years of European domination. Before then, people have always known how to register themselves into universal consciousness.
Definitely.
Certain tribes in Africa have been exploring the universe for several years, several thousands of years before every other person could know how to do it. So it is not new to us. It's just because we have become prisoners of war to the European. So we basically have to know what they want us to know. To the extent they want us to know, every other thing, even about ourselves, we don't know. So that is what I'm referring to there. Not because we have never attempted to know before. Because people were only living in Africa. Why would they go to populate the rest of the world? We have always been doing this. It has been part of us. But the fact that we only see the hip of our nose, that is the limit, is because that is the condition that we have been placed in. But even these two, we are going to break the barrier and be free to live the life that we were destined to live.
Oh yeah. I agree with you 100%. What you're saying, that we've got to free our mind, and by doing that, it is when we will be attracting the lives that we have to live. For instance, talking more on that, the example that I can put out there, it's just Ubuntu, right? We can see that in Africa or African continent, we've just there are still good people, but you still find the practice or things that are happening which are inhuman, and we also have to challenge that and talk about those things, rather than all the time saying we are victims. We also need to understand ourselves that there's inhumanity that we're also doing. We're going back to Ubuntu, which is more the practice of collectiveness rather than individualism, which now I become happy that I've got all these things. I've got all this beautiful big mansion house, and only to find out that I'm living there by myself. And we no longer have that unity because that's what we have to practice, the unity. We become unified. We help each other. We have empathy. We have a respect for each other. We have all these little aspects that comes under humanity or under Ubuntu. The reason why I'm talking about Ubuntu and the reason why I place my book talking more on that, it's mainly because that's the only way we can get out of this. Once we sort out our mindset and once we practice the Ubuntu, everything will make sense in a good, be good for your neighbor, be good for the next person who's next to you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are good just because you want people to see that you're good. It should come within yourself, that I'm going to help Obehi because I want to, and I'm not expecting anything from him to pay me back, or I'm not looking that this is what I'm going to benefit if I help somebody else. These are the practices that were performed, or these were the practice that our forefathers, or way back, it was mandatory. It was shaping the continent. It was shaping the country. I would say country because I would say continent. I'll stay with continent because obviously we know that these countries came through the borders. But it was just the continent that was practicing the Ubuntu, that I will come to you. Even now, my tribe, they still do it. Zulu people, they still believe in Ubuntu more than anything. I will come to your house if I don't have food. You don't have to even ask that, should I dish up for you? You will just dish up for everybody who's in the house. You share. That was the most important thing as well, sharing, if I've got something, I will give you something and then you'll give me the other thing that I don't have. So it was more of the community was very strong in those times. And now we see that those were breaking down because obviously they know how powerful that could be, that if we unite and if we focus on the same goal, on the same aspect that we want, we are going to be a very powerful race. We are going to be a very dangerous, let's say that. Dangerous in every aspect, because I remember this was asked about the book. I was even saying that how to explain Ubuntu just for an example. If I don't talk with you, Obehi, and we don't talk like we hate each other, I would say not hate, but maybe we had an argument, a fight or something, right? You're my brother, and I don't come to your house. When we see each other on the road, on the street, we don't greet each other. You just, But if something happens to your family member, let's say probably your child or your mom or whoever, in our practice, in our Ubuntu practice as a Zulu person, you go to that. I will come to you. I will come for condolences. I will come to the funeral. And reason being is that this was made throughout everything that will make you not to see eye to eye, or that will make you fight. God knew that those things will come, the jealousy, the hatred, and whatever or whatnot. But then if we look at it in the aspect that I am going to go to Obehi, whatever, maybe it's the funeral or something, I will go there to show Ubuntu. So we used to see, we always say, I'm just showing Ubuntu, and it's such a very, very positive practice, Ubuntu, because Ubuntu, it's like an umbrella of everything that the factors of love comes under Ubuntu. But the difference now between love and Ubuntu humanity is that the Ubuntu practice, it's always positive. It has never been associated with negativity. For example, love can be associated with both the hate and the love, right? Ubuntu, it's always about kindness. It's the closest name I could describe. Kindness, you do kind things because you want to do those kind things, because you are obliged to do those kind things. But then with love, I can say, oh, how much I love you, but I don't mean it, And the same love is the same love that can make you to hate. It can also be converted to hate. Because if I love money and I say I love money, I will kill to get that money. So there is a bit of hate there, and there's a bit of unkind, there's a bit of evilness on it as well. But I can't kill another person and say, oh, I'm just doing it for humanity, or I'm just doing it for Ubuntu. So Ubuntu has never been linked, connected with negativity, but love has, because your loved one can kill you. We see the domestic violence that is going on, right? When the person is asked, why did you do it? And some do say that I did it because I love her or I loved him, and I couldn't imagine another person being with that person. So is it still love?
It's complicated.
So I always say, if we go back and practice Ubuntu, because Ubuntu, it's more on respect as well. When I say respect, it's I will respect you, you respect me back. I will respect your territory, even though we can be in the same house or in the same place. But the respect is that when you respect somebody, it's that you don't want to hurt another person. That's the respect.
What maybe, for example, the community is being attacked from the outside? How would the spirit of Ubuntu be put together, maybe in sort of defense for the people?
The people who are being attacked outside is to ask your questions. Ask questions. Why are we being attacked? And this again goes back to the respect. Respect each other's territory. Like we used to do. You respect somebody else's house. In my culture, they call it umuzwenye ndoda uyahlonishwa. So basically, it's like another man's house, you respect another man's house. So in that manner is that when you come to my house, as you will respect my house. You'll respect my husband because it's my husband's house, right? And in that way, you can't just do willy-nilly whatever that you wish to do just because of I'm here. I've been given this shelter to live here for 2 weeks. Then I can do as I please. I can smoke inside the house. I can play music if they don't like that. You play loud music, and then you respect. Respect. It's also associated with the humbleness. So you humble yourself when you are given that shelter. When we welcome you as a visitor, then you humble yourself. In so many ways, this has helped when you look at it, that, these practices actually, they do work, but it's going to be challenging now because now we're in the modern ways where I would say I don't respect you because you don't respect me, or I don't care. We individualize ourselves so much that we don't think about what other people think. I know it's not fair that you start worrying about what other people think about you, but that again, it's a way of trying to bring you to be humble. Because if I will do something, if I can get out now and start drinking on the street, start smoking in the street, and not caring who's watching, who says anything, because I don't care. But if that means it perpetuates the behavior that we're behaving. But if I say, oh my God, I can't be seen smoking because Brother Obehi will see me doing this ABCD, then you become content. You have there's something that is that supporting structure is shaping you for your behavior to be a better person. If you know if you clear what I'm saying. So this thing of us now being modern and like, I don't care, I think for myself, it's about me kind of business. It was never an African practice. It was never an African ways. We always believe in, I have to help Obehi before I gain, I help myself, or before I gain whatever myself. So it's like even when you look at it in the religion practice in Christianity, it does say in the Bible that you love your neighbor like you love yourself. I'm not saying something which is not written down there. If there's any accusation that what about Africanism? So those are the things that you have to be conscious and think about it, that why it was said. It's not necessary that you're loving your neighbor as your actual neighbor. It was respecting the other person. That is love. You respect another person, that I will respect you. Whether we've got disagreement with whatever that the disagreement of the perspective of what we're thinking about, but we have to come together somehow to focus on the certain goals.
Yeah, that is important. Thank you so much for the sharing.
Thank you.
Now, for people that want to get your book, get a copy of it for themselves, share with them, tell them how to get it, and tell them how to connect with you to learn more about what you're doing.
Right. At the moment, my book is, you can find my book through Amazon. I think UK, you can find it, and in Europe as well, different countries that you can find it. In South Africa, when I left some copy. When I was there, I left some copies, which you can connect with me through Facebook. I've got the book page on Facebook, so you can also contact me through that and through messages. Mainly because I can't give out my contact number, because I'll be getting weird contacts. So. Yeah.
It's okay. That's fair enough.
Yeah, so you can get it through Amazon. You can get it. You can contact me through the page, and on Facebook as well. I'm on Facebook as Fundisiwe Dlamini, and where I'm seeing this book going, the main thing about it was just to start having these conversations like today, having these forum that we can start debating, arguing, disagreeing, but at the end of the day, we need to start talking. We've been reading for so long that you just read, and the reason for me to do this book as a quotation, it's because I didn't want to to write something like articles, or you start writing a book which is like 1,000 pages or 780 pages or whatsoever. But at the end of the day, that person will just read the book and then like, okay, put it away and take another one and like next, and not doing anything. So this book, it's where you read the quote and then you have to challenge yourself to think that you understand it. It could be crypto message, and you need to figure out, and you need to share with your friends that, you know what, I saw this quote. What do you think? Do you think that's right? Then the other person will be like, no, I don't agree with this, ABCD. So this is just establishing the conversation that we need to start talking in order for us to get the solutions. By you talking to your friends, probably your friend can have a better solution than what is in the book. But then you're like, oh, yeah, actually, it revokes so many things. It will be revoking projects. It will be revoking podcasts. It will be revoking, the debate, those platforms where you will be communicating, and whether you've given an opportunity to disagree or agree. But it's just the beginning or the start of talking, having conversation. And that's what we need, because we're not having conversation enough. We are thinking, we have given up in a way that I can't be bothered by that topic. I can't be talking about that. Yeah, let's move on. But how do you move on without healing?
That's a good question.
The past and the present, and you're like, I can't be bothered. It's like you're building this garden, the flowers, you're just putting the flowers on top of the mud. But then we need to go deep to the mud and start putting more soil in order for it to be stable, and say, let's talk about it. It's uncomfortable. I'm willing for anybody, any race, to come to me and debate about the book. Why did you say Black population? Why did you say this? As if it was just the Black population that was favored. But for me, it's not about the Black population which was favored. My focus was the focus of this race who are the last in the list. That how can you gain your confidence, know that you are loved, know that you're beautiful, know that you need to have the self-love, know that you can be more than what you think you can. So that's why I'm channeling it to I'm saying Black population. It's not mainly on the matter of discriminating other race, but other race are functioning well. Other race are up there, and
but of course, you need to speak for yourself. That is fair enough. You're not going to be speaking for everybody now. Every other person have their mind; they can speak for themselves. So thank you so much for
and unfortunately is that the ideas that I can come with are the ideas that probably I know of because I'm a Black person. I can't talk on behalf of other person. I can't talk on behalf of Asians. I can't talk on behalf of white population because I know best. I know Black best. So that's what it is.
Thank you so much for the conversation. So briefly, what would be your final message here to conclude it? Very briefly to conclude it. Please go ahead and do that.
Yes, the final message that probably I can give out is that let's go back to the Ubuntu practice and let's love one another. Let's have confidence and self-love amongst each other, and that will heal us. And let's make sure that we protect our mind.
Thank you so much. I repeat again, it is highly valuable what you're talking about here. The mind is a terrible thing to lose, so we must protect it. Exactly. We must protect it.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sister.
Yeah, and another thing probably that I can just run through with the book, I'm looking on so many different future projects. One of them being obviously the podcast on explaining these quotation in a deep and like what we are doing today, and to see if people do understand and for their views, people's view, their critics, and that's how we can start shaping. And another, it's about focusing on literacy and teaching our kids the power of knowing their languages and the power of knowing their identity through books and through the Black history knowledge. And that's another thing that I'm looking at. And other than that, it's just the book. Always see it's been part of other projects as well. It's also piloting with other projects in South Africa. One of them, it was when we donated with the disaster that happened in KZN. That was 2021. And with the copy that was bought of the book, then we managed to donate to the charities that were helping the floods disaster that were happening in South Africa. And we can still do more with the help of obviously being united and working hand in hand. And with the sales of the book, we can achieve more in Africa.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. So keep on doing what you're doing. It is very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening and talk to you in the next episode.